Hi, I'm Dennis Pollock, and I want to do a review and a test of 5 different microphones. We've been getting into production in our ministry, the video production that is, and I just go crazy with research whenever we get into anything like that. I just have to get my hands dirty and study and watch YouTube videos and all the rest. And so I've done a lot of testing and research, and I just want to share about 5 different mics that we've come up with that work well for people like us that are on a budget. If you've got unlimited money to spend on microphones, then this is not for you. But if you're like us and you don't have unlimited money, you have very, very limited money, this might be helpful. So there are 5 different microphones we'll be looking at. One is called the Giant Squid. It's a strange name, but a pretty good mic. One is the Sony ECM-CS3, which is a very, very inexpensive mic. One is the Sony ECM-44B. Another one is the ECM-55B, and those two are the types that go into a mixing board. And the final one is called a Takstar, which I had never heard of, and you probably haven't either. But it's actually a pretty decent mini shotgun mic that sits on top of your camera or camcorder. And we'll take a look at that and some of the weaknesses and strengths, and I'll give you a pretty good tip that may help you take what you thought was a lousy mic and actually turn it into a pretty decent one. So let's get started. The first one, I'm not able to show you by holding it in my hands because I'm wearing it. This is the Giant Squid microphone. It is actually reviewed a lot on YouTube videos and on the internet. People are using it a lot, and there's a reason for that. It's a pretty decent mic at a pretty decent price. The price is about $50. It's made to go into a portable recorder like the one I use, which is the Zoom H1. And so you don't have to put it into a mixer. You don't have to do anything fancy. You can keep your recorder in your pocket if it'll fit, and you just stick that thing into that recorder and you sync it afterwards. A lot of people get scared by the idea of syncing sound with video, but it's actually much easier than most people think. So it's really not a problem at all. If you do a little research, you'll find out you can do it very, very easily. So let's look right now, and what we're going to do is we're going to play just a short portion of each microphone and let you hear for yourself. You don't have to take my word for it. You're going to hear for yourself the sound coming through these 5 different microphones, and you can decide, and of course I'll give you my ideas at the end also about their strengths and weaknesses, but you can decide which one sounds good to you. Right now, let's go to the Giant Squid mic. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through Him, and without Him nothing was made that was made. In Him was life, and the life was the light of men. Well, you've been listening to the Giant Squid lavalier microphone. It's actually the one I'm wearing here, and it is sells for around $50, a really decent microphone. And in some ways, the sound quality is just almost up there with the big boys. So for a little bit of money, you get quite a bit of mic. As you heard from the video and the audio of that video, it's good sound. In fact, it compares almost with some of the really, really nice several $100 microphones. The only weakness I saw in it, or heard in it, I should say, is the fact that there's a little bit more noise or low roar, hiss, whatever you want to call it, a little more ambient noise that comes with it than some of the better mics. Really, when it comes to microphones, there's 2 things you want. You want good sound quality, obviously, but secondly, you want a mic that's going to produce a very, very low amount of ambient noise. The less noise, the better. You want to hear the person talking. You do not want to hear a roar or a hiss or anything like that. So this one produces a little, not a lot, but a little more than some of the more expensive ones. Well, let's go on to the second mic that we'll look at and review. And I do have that here with me. This is the Sony ECM-CS3. This is the cheapest mic you will probably find in this category at all. And amazingly, it's pretty decent. It's got a little weakness, I think, but it's pretty decent. So you can get this for about $15 on Amazon. It can serve as a great backup mic, if nothing else. But the sound really surprised me when I realized that it's really not bad at all. So let's listen right now to the Sony ECM-CS3. There was a man sent from God, whose name was John. This man came for a witness, to bear witness of the light, that all through him might believe. He was not that light, but was sent to bear witness of that light, that was the true light, which gives light to every man coming into the world. You've been listening to the Sony ECM-CS3 lavalier microphone. Sells for about $15 on Amazon, a tremendous deal. And I imagine, if you're like me, you probably thought, well, that just sounds pretty good. That's what I feel. The only weakness I see in it is that there's a little bit more ambient noise than the big boys and even the Giant Squid. The Giant Squid I didn't think sounded that much better than the cheap Sony. But the Giant Squid had less ambient noise, had less hiss, less of a noise. You probably wouldn't have noticed it with a quick listen to like you just now did. You play it again, you might notice it, but as I listened to it carefully on my computer, I could tell it had a little bit more of the background noise. Not a lot, but definitely enough to tell. Well, let's go on to our third microphone, and that is the Sony ECM-44B. Now, this is a broadcast quality mic. It's not all that expensive brand new. Brand new, it's probably around $160 to $180, $190. I think Amazon sells one for about $157. Some of the others are a little higher. But this is used by TV people, believe it or not. This is considered a broadcast mic, and it's got the XLR connector, so it's going to go into a mixing board or something that will take an XLR connector. And that's not a bad thing, but it won't work with your portable recorder, chances are. And so it'll go well into a mixing board. There are some of the higher level Zooms that will accept an XLR connector. But this is a very nice mic, and it is used by TV professionals, believe it or not. So it's amazing to me that for about $160 brand new, you can get a mic that TV people use. Now, the good news, and I said this is for people on a budget, is you don't even have to spend that much. You can go to eBay, and you can usually find them for somewhere between $70 and $90 in really nice shape. You can go all the way down to $20 for one that says for repair or parts, but I don't assume you want that. But for about $70 to $90, maybe $100, you can get a really nice microphone, a Sony ECM-44B. The nice thing about these is that they last almost forever. Some people call them indestructible. So they are really a pretty decent mic. But enough of me talking about it. Listen for yourself to what it sounds like to hear from a Sony ECM-44B. Let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God. Believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you to myself, that where I am, there you may be also. And where I go you know, and the way you know. Okay, you've been listening to the Sony ECM-44B. Now we're going to move to a little higher priced microphone by the unlikely name of the Sony ECM-55B. Somebody wasn't very creative when they thought up the names for these microphones. They've got a 66B and a 77B, and well, I think you get the idea. But the Sony ECM-55B can, depending on where you buy it, cost almost twice as much as the ECM-44B. That means almost for sure it's got to be a better mic, but I couldn't really tell much difference, to tell you the truth. I'll let you listen for yourself. It looks very much like the 44B, and both of these are made where you can unscrew them and they'll take a battery, so you don't even need phantom power. Although if you use a mixing board, you know, it's going to provide that phantom power, but they don't have to have phantom power. So these are pretty decent mics. Again, broadcast mics. TV people use these. Now, probably not the guys that make the big movies. Well, of course, they're not going to be wearing lavalier mics anyway. But probably not the newscasters that do your evening news. But local TV stations and people doing various things on TV will use these mics. And they consider them workhorses. In fact, if you look at all the reviews, the 44B and the 55B, that one of the most common terms used for these two mics is a workhorse. They do a good job. They last for years normally if you don't mistreat them too badly. And well, listen for yourself. Sony ECM-55B. Jesus answered and said to him, Most assuredly I say to you, unless one is born again, he cannot see the kingdom of God. Nicodemus said to him, "How can a man be born when he's old? Can he enter a second time into his mother's womb and be born?" Jesus answered, "Most assuredly I say to you, unless one is born of water and the Spirit, he cannot enter the kingdom of God." Okay, so that was the Sony ECM-55B. We've looked at two of the mics that go with the portable recording devices like the Zoom H1, which is probably the most popular. It's a great recording device, by the way. You can get it for about $99 on Amazon, or almost all places are the same price, about $100. And it really does an outstanding job. Some people complain it's plastic and it'll break if you drop it. Maybe it will, but don't drop it and treat it carefully. But if you do drop it and break it, go order another one for $100. That's really not too bad. So right now we're going to go to the Takstar. Now this is different than the other four mics in that it mounts on top of a camera, or at least that's the idea. It is a shotgun mic. I'd call it a mini shotgun mic. It's not all that big, but the idea is it's a very directional mic, and it will pull the sound in from the place where you point it. And that's good in certain situations because what it means is you're not going to get a lot of background noise. You're not going to get a lot of noise from the side. You're going to get noise from the source that you want the noise from. So this is cheap. This is like $30 on Amazon, or maybe $31. And yet the reviews are phenomenal. People really love this mic. So I ordered it and got it. It's made to mount onto a camera or a camcorder. And you take this little 1/8 inch plug or 3.5 millimeter plug and you plug it into your camera. And it has a battery in it, so it doesn't need phantom power. It provides its own power through a AA battery. And bang, you've got a shotgun mic. Well, I got this, and when I first used it, I was disappointed. In fact, I was really disappointed and even thinking about sending it back. And the reason I was so disappointed was I tested it, and it had a hollow, echoey sound, not much better than what I get when I use my regular camcorder. And everybody knows that the camcorder's recording devices are terrible. I don't know why they even put them on there, really. Well, I mean, they're good for syncing up sound, but they're just pathetic, and no serious video person is ever going to use the onboard recording device on their camera, no matter how good the camera. Anyway, this didn't sound much better than that, this Takstar, and so I thought, what a waste of money. Granted, it was only $30, but still. But then I tried something else. Now, the first time I tested it from about 8 feet away. And this is the sound that I got. "In whom we have redemption through his blood, the forgiveness of sins. He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. For by him all things were created that are in heaven and that are on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or principalities or powers." Well, you've been listening to a recording done through the Takstar SGC-598, I believe it's called. And it sounded terrible, didn't it? It sounded just as bad as your camcorder does. Well, that's what I thought, and I was so disappointed. And I thought, what in the world are all these good reviews about this pathetic little microphone that sits on top of your camera or your camcorder? But I did another test, and I found it worked a whole lot better. In fact, I learned it from reviews that I had read on Amazon. And somebody was telling how that, number one, Canon camcorders generally produce significant hiss even with external recording devices where you plug them into the camcorder. But it said there's one way to avoid that. And what it is you turn the gain way up on your recorder or your microphone, and you turn the gain way down on your camcorder. And then the other thought is, these microphones are not made to pick up sound across the room. I know the idea of a shotgun mic may impress you, and you think, wow, a shotgun mic, that means I can stand all the way across the room, 25 feet away, across a large room, and I can pick up somebody's voice like I was next to them. No, you can't. You just can't do that. These work well when they're about anywhere from 2 feet to 4 feet from the subject. The minute you start moving beyond 4 or 5 feet, they lose their value almost altogether. And when I did it from 8 feet, it was just pathetic. But I read somewhere that what you do is you lower the recording level on your camcorder. You raise the recording level on this thing because it has a way to do a higher or a lower gain on its recording ability. You raise it on here, you lower it on your camcorder, and then the other thing, of course, was I got a lot closer. The microphone and the camcorder was about a yard away from me, about 3 feet. And so the difference in sound was amazing. Instead of sounding pathetic, it sounded great. I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away. And every branch that bears fruit, he prunes, that it may bear more fruit. You are already clean because of the word which I have spoken to you. Abide in me, and I in you, as the branch cannot bear fruit of itself unless it abides in the vine. Neither can you unless you abide in me. Okay, so you've been listening to this Takstar. It's SGC-598. It is cheap, and yet some of the reviewers, people that have had Rode microphones of this type, the kind that mount on cameras, the shotgun style, have said that this is almost as good as a Rode. And that's why I had such a hard time understanding when I did it from 8 feet away and I got such bad results. But as you heard from the second go-round, it actually sounds pretty good. So the point is, from all these reviews, first of all, if you just can afford one, probably go with the Giant Squid, get yourself a Zoom portable recorder, and you're in business. And the nice thing about that is you don't have to fool with the mixing board, which is not very portable, but you can carry that Zoom recorder in your pocket. You can walk all around. If you're a lecturer, you can give lectures. If you're a preacher, you can pace back and forth or whatever, and you can sync the audio at the end. And the audio is very syncable. I don't know if there's such a word, but it is syncable. You can sync that audio. Don't be afraid. Try it once, and once you see how easy it is, you won't be afraid to do that. And you get so much better sound that way, and you don't have to worry about a long cord connected. So that's one great way. Now, if you're going to have several people being recorded at once, where you need to get all their voices, then you're probably going to need a mixing board, and you're probably going to need several of these something like the ECM-44B or ECM-55B, where you can plug them into the mixing board. You'll need a mixing board that'll hold about 4 different inputs, XLR inputs, and you're in business. Now, you're not as portable, but if you've got 4 people, you're not going to be walking all over the room anyway, so no problem there. Again, the thing that makes these nice for people on a budget, the ECM-44B and ECM-55B, is that you can get them used. And they're such great, enduring microphones that even if you get a used one, as long as it's a nice one, don't get something that's all beat up, but if it looks nice and someone's taking good care of it, chances are you can buy that baby and it'll last you for another 10 years. So those are some great options. I found that the ECM-44B seemed to have the less ambient noise of any of them and had a real nice sound. Of course, you can adjust that on your mixing board. So if you don't like the sound, you want it a little crisper, you want it a little flatter, you can do that. A lot of options with those when you use a mixing board. But if you're just doing yourself, if it's just one person and you've got a very limited budget, invest in the Zoom H1 or something similar. I think the Zoom H1 is probably the best bet for your money. And get the Giant Squid and you're in business. And if you need an extra one, just in case the Squid fails or gets broken or whatever, you could pick up one of those Sony ECM-CS3s for about $15. And it will do pretty nicely. Probably most people wouldn't even notice the little bit of extra ambient noise, a little bit of extra low roar that you'll get. Some audiophiles would, but most people wouldn't. So it's a good backup mic, but the Giant Squid is definitely a notch better. Hope you've enjoyed this review. Check out our website, spiritofgrace.org. I'm not really in the sound business, I'm in the ministry business. We do missions to Africa, and I do a lot of Bible teaching, but we're getting more and more into video, and if you get into video, you got to get into audio, because video with lousy audio is lousy video. You've got to have good audio. In fact, probably that's even more important, especially for ministries and preachers. Hope you've enjoyed it. God bless. See you again sometime.